welcome to Explained, the show where we answer one crucial question that will determine the outcome of the 2019 polls. I'm Aarti Subramaniam, and joining me to answer this question is Mirana's consulting editor Vinay Tiwari.
Thank you, Aarti, and we hope to answer another vexed question ahead of 2019 elections.
6 December 1992 saw the demolition of the Babri Masjid by car sevaks, an event that changed the political history of India forever. Now, what impact did that have on the BJP's electoral performance? 1991, as we mentioned earlier, their vote share was 20.10. Now, if you switch to 1996, when the next general election was, it was 20.30. That's a very, very marginal increase in their overall growth. That's a 0.2% increase to be specific. Now, in Uttar Pradesh, if you just look at Uttar Pradesh alone, between 1991 and 1996, it saw again a very marginal growth. In 96, it was 0.6% increase in Uttar Pradesh. So overall, the BJP did not have what many would think would be an obvious rise in its performance or a growth.
Yes, so the period where Mr. Advani was carrying out his Rath Yatra, the polarization helped the BJP. But post the demolition, there were a lot of other things that happened too. There were riots in many parts of the country. Mumbai had very bad riots as well. We also saw the emergence of regional parties like RJD in Bihar and Samajwadi Party in UP, who actually effectively started the process of counter-polarization as well. Because remember, there was a phase when the minorities and especially the Muslims were feeling very, very insecure. And these two parties in many ways emerged as so-called messiahs and saviors for them. And in that sense, started the process of reverse polarization. So both those things arrested the BJP's growth. What also arrested BJP's growth was some amount of agrarian distress, which was then being seen in many parts of India, especially in the rural areas. There were droughts, patches of droughts that had happened in many parts. And one of the slogans, most popular slogans then was whenever BJP would go and campaign in those states, the farmers would tell them, "Bhuke pet bhajan nahi hota hai." And what it essentially meant was that you can't be hungry and still be praying. So you really need to be well fed to even pray. And that was a very decisive reason why the BJP's vote share didn't climb more than what it had till the time the demolition actually had happened.
Now, post-99, there was a decline in the BJP's performance, and that really reflected because the vote share reduced, its seat share reduced. The BJP from 1991 went down, 1999, I beg your pardon, went down into a spiral almost in the state. Now, a large part of that, and that also perhaps resulted in them putting the Mandir issue on the back burner because they had to appear more inclusive and more secular for other parties to be able to have an alliance with them.
Yes, and that was a phase in India when we almost had an alliance politics culture. I mean, there was no dominant party, and the BJP needed the other parties as well. And obviously, those other parties weren't very comfortable with the idea of Mandir being the main issue. Vajpayee was in that point of time the face of the party. Govindacharya, who was at that point of time an ideologue of the party before he was sent into the wilderness, called Vajpayee the Mukhota for principally this reason, because he was supposed to be the moderate face, hiding behind the hardline elements in the BJP. That comment itself was not very well received within the party, but that was pretty much how it was being presented, that Mr. Vajpayee, being the moderate leader, would appeal to the alliance partners and in that sense would help them in the coalition situation should the need arise.
But even in 2009, somebody like an Advani did have to tone down the rhetoric.
They did, because 2004, of course, BJP fought on India Shining and didn't do very well on that. Surprisingly, they were surprised. In fact, most of the other people who were from small towns perhaps weren't as surprised. In 2009, the BJP's campaign was very confusing. I mean, they weren't very sure because the first tenure of Manmohan Singh was a fairly good one. India had shown rapid development in many areas, and they were not very sure of what to attack them on. They even went to the extent of trying to attack Manmohan Singh as a person, which backfired badly because Manmohan Singh carried an image of an elderly, well-behaved, decent gentleman. It didn't really work. Also, the fact that Advani himself was trying to be an moderate face at that point of time, which was a big departure from his Rath Yatra days in many ways. So there was a lot of confusion, and the voters probably obviously didn't find any merit in that kind of a confused narrative.
Well, cut to 2014, where the Narendra Modi wave hit India. Now, the very crucial factor that helped was that Modi replaced Mandir as the most polarizing factor in that election.
Yes, because Mr. Modi himself had that image of a polarizing politician. I mean, he practiced some bit of that in Gujarat, for instance, when he was the chief minister, got huge electoral dividends for that. And the obvious interpretation was that if you pitch him as the prime ministerial candidate, as opposed to, say, somebody like an Advani, you would automatically achieve that purpose of getting consolidation behind a man who was clearly either very well loved or completely not loved. I mean, there were only two emotions with Mr. Modi at that point of time, right? You either never liked him at all, or you would like him completely. And the BJP and the RSS realized it, and that's why he became the face of the party for 2014. And ironically, when he went into the campaign, there was no mention of Mandir at all. He actually went on the pitch of development and a new India, as they were calling it, which was completely fresh and different in terms of corruption. Corruption was a big issue, and development was the new issue.
Now, 2019 has seen a shift in narrative because initially there were certain rumblings about a Mandir, the fact that the matter came up in the Supreme Court as well. It was timed very well in the sense that it gave the BJP that impetus. But over the past couple of weeks, or maybe a little more, you've seen a change, and that's largely due to the following factors. The first very crucial one has been this limited on-ground traction with regards to the Mandir.
So till the UP elections in 2017, assembly elections, the BJP believed that the Mandir issue would have a lot of traction, which is the reason why Mr. Yogi Adityanath was pitched as the Chief Minister candidate, much to many people's surprise, because Yogi Adityanath was not exactly the person who was supposed to be the front-runner for being the CM. He was pitched because he also had a similar image of a very divisive leader, a strident Hindu leader, and somebody who actually believed in using religion to carry out his political agenda in many ways. So till that part, the BJP and the RSS were convinced that that is the logic. They carried on with that for the next couple of years or so, till about 6 months ago, when for the first time they realized that on ground, the traction that they would normally get for something like this was not exactly going the way they were looking for.
There was a second very crucial feature, and this was, of course, the fact that the BJP lost 3 crucial states in the Hindi heartland.
Absolutely. And the big thing that happened there was this. In Chhattisgarh, in Madhya Pradesh and in Rajasthan, Congress came up with a new reinvention, which was called soft Hindutva in many ways. Rahul Gandhi went on a temple run in many ways. He was the display of Rudraksh, calling himself Shiv Bhakt, saying, I'm a Janayodhari Brahmin. All of those things were aimed at suggesting that I am as much a Hindu and a kind of a unifying factor as the BJP. That slightly blunted the BJP's attempt to polarize, and the fact that they actually ended up losing the 3 states worried them a lot, because they realized that the stridency that they were showing so far was not working as much in the Hindi heartland as it used to earlier.
And then, of course, the third most crucial factor, which is nationalism, became the new calling card. Now, this is something that you saw after the Pulwama attack. It's something that you hear in every rally of the Prime Minister and BJP leaders in which they mention nationalism. And, you know, the Pulwama attacks, the Balakot strike, as that being the primary calling card now.
Yes, and I think the BJP very cleverly dovetailed nationalism, patriotism, even, I would say, Hindu consolidation into one in many ways. And nothing unites India better than Pakistan or hatred for Pakistan does. And Balakot, in that sense, changed that narrative. Pathankot and Balakot, Pulwama and Balakot completely changed that narrative in many ways, because that gave them an opportunity to go hell for leather for an issue where there can be no real opposition. You really can't be seen to be opposing a narrative which talks about nation first, which talks about terrorism, which talks about your army, and you talks about nationalism. So that's, in many ways, if you see in every speech now that Mr. Modi is making, that's the only issue that they're talking about.
Well, the BJP has definitely changed its strategy in 2019. Whether putting the Mandir on the back burner or not is going to pay dividends is something that we will have to see.
Absolutely. I mean, twice they've tried in the past. Whether this time they'll again work for them or not, or whether it will have limited traction, is something we'll find out soon.
Well, we'll find out on May 23rd.